Coming up on today's show.
I had a friend who was into PR who basically said to me, it's really not hard to get an Emmy or, any kind of award. I said, you got to be kidding me. I remember specifically saying to him, well, how does this even work? I said, animation, Bugs Bunny, he's a drawing, but he moves. How's that work? And he explained the whole thing.
Yep.
And from that point on, I was just enthralled. I
Yeah.
raised money for it pretty easily, which I was really surprised about.
Hmm.
The topic was close to me because Andrew Geller was my grandfather, hiking and exploring the woods, going on adventures. And because this story took place up in Ithaca, and a lot of it was in the gorges up in Ithaca, with waterfalls and just this incredible, beautiful scenery, it was something that I had always wanted to find an excuse to film, to capture on film.
Hi there, I'm April Paige, breaking down the what, when, where, and how creatives get their inspiration. I'm a big fan of the cursey words, and I've been a creative for 30 plus years in marketing and fine art. This is where creatives unite to break down the facts of creative life. Buckle up, let's get lost in the world of creativity together.
Welcome, everyone, to Artist Antics with April, where we talk to creatives about creativity. Today, I'm very excited to sit down to talk to filmmaker and writer extraordinaire, Jake Gorst. Jake is an Emmy Award-winning documentary filmmaker and the president of Mainspring Narrative Films, the author of Andrew Geller Deconstructed, a contributing writer to the Architects newspaper, Fox Hamptons, Home Miami, Modern and Modernism magazines. His wife, Tracy, is vice president and co-producer at Mainspring, and they're been making films since 2002. I hope that's right. Tracy also served as an editor for the book Andrew Geller Deconstructed in the upcoming book called Leisurama, Vacation Homes for the Average American, as well as numerous magazines and newspaper articles. Jake resides with his wife and two children in Litchfield, Connecticut. His daughters are older now and don't live with them, but welcome, Jake. I am honored to be able to talk to you today. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So I like to start out my conversation with everyone. What inspired you to become a filmmaker? What was the spark? I love to hear that story. Like, was it from being young and being around people that were filmmakers, or you just love film, or how did that all happen?
Yeah, I remember it very clearly. I was only
Oh, good.
7 years old at the time.
Oh, that's amazing.
Um, my parents had a friend named Mike Hopiak. He was a nature photographer and he worked for the ornithology lab at Cornell University. And he was over at our house every weekend having dinner with us. And I thought he was the coolest guy ever. And,
Aw.
and he would come with his cameras. He'd show pictures that he took that week. He had a dark room that, he would do these uh, large prints,
Yeah.
and he would bring those, and they were incredible. But then one day he started telling me about how when he was my age, he used to make movies. And I said, "Well, what do you mean? What did you do?" He says, "Oh, yeah, I've got a film that shows me, sword playing with a dinosaur." And I was like,
Right.
"What?" And so he brought um, he brought his film with him the next weekend with his projector, and he turned our living room into a
A
movie
film.
theater.
Yeah. No, that's amazing.
Showed us that, and I remember specifically saying to him, "Well, how does this even work?" I said, animation, Bugs Bunny, he's a drawing, but he moves. How's that work? And he explained the whole thing.
Yep.
And from that point on, I was just enthralled.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think, I've talked about it many times on the show, the channel, about how important it is to make sure that we share what our passion with children, and how you never know where that little, you know,
Yeah.
pebble, and that ripple effect will lead, and look at what we have now. So it's your full-time gig. So that's awesome. Um, so I see that Mainspring has works on Corsi. For those of you who don't know, it's Renaissance model, right? And a fine artist and modern architecture and something about the rise and fall of books. In general, where do you usually draw inspiration from? Because I know these are kind of, different types of pieces. So I just wanted to just get an idea, like, how do you come up with some of this inspiration? Yeah.
Well, the projects that our production company does, I have to be very, very careful because I'm interested in a lot of different things, you know, and it's easy to overdo it. It's
Yeah.
easy to take on too much at once, and so you have to be very, very selective. Um, it can be a tricky thing because
Mm.
I'm interested in so many different things,
Yeah.
and every now and then I will make a list of all the topics that I'm interested in doing something about. And
I
then
have
I,
a notebook. I
yeah,
have a
yeah.
notebook, and
Um,
it's almost full. Yeah, and I could never explore all those in my lifetime. So,
yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, you have to weed through it and say, okay, well,
Mhm.
what is the most feasible? What am I going to be the most passionate about?
That's right.
And, pick those topics. Now, we've had two different kinds of productions. We've had the ones that we do as Mainspring that belong to Mainspring, and that can be whatever we want it to be.
Mhm.
Or we've also done, Tracy and I have done subcontracting projects for another production company. There's a
Gotcha.
company out in Denver called Design on Screen that a lot of the architecture films have been for. So
Gotcha.
um, films like William Kreisel, Architect, um, uh, the Albert Frey series, that they were projects that I really enjoyed, that I really poured everything into. I especially love the Frey projects.
Yeah.
Um, but they were assignments essentially, so I made the most of the assignment.
Yeah.
Um, But we have our own production company, and we make films based on interests of ours. So the first one was called Leisurama. It's one of
Yeah,
our,
which I wanted to talk about.
yeah.
It's about homes in Montauk, New York, from what I read, designed by architect Andrew Geller at the industrial designer Raymond Loews. Am I saying that
Uh-huh.
right? Office, where they sold these in Macy's department store. Like, how did you find out about this story? And I think it's amazing.
Well, it's interesting that it was my first independent feature film because I was looking for a topic that I could be, excited about.
Mhm.
And it was right after 9/11 that
Mhm.
we took this project on. At the time, I was a graphic designer, and most of my clients were in Lower Manhattan, and south of 14th Street, and so everything was closed down, and it got to the point where the business I had to do something different, you know.
Right.
Um, and so I had the opportunity to do an animated sequence for somebody else's documentary.
Mm.
And through those connections, um, the thought of doing a documentary on my own it just became something like it was a reality. It was like, okay, well, let's give this a try, see if this works. I was able to actually um, raise money for it pretty easily, which I was really surprised about.
Mhm.
The topic was close to me because Andrew Geller was my grandfather, and
Oh,
so
that's amazing.
I grew up, around houses around construction sites. I was familiar with it, and Leisurama was at first I was kind of skeptical of the idea of doing a film about it, but I went down to the Hagley Museum in Wilmington, Delaware,
Mhm.
and they have a Raymond Loewy archive there, and
Mm.
they had a couple of scrapbooks full of articles about Leisurama, and there's a lot of information, newspaper clippings, and mostly newspaper clippings. And I read these things, and I thought, well, this could make a very interesting film. So we started doing some interviews, um, and then just more things came out of the woodwork. I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
No, but I'm just curious about that story. So they
yeah,
were selling them as second homes in Macy's. Am I correct with that? And
yes.
like,
Well,
how many did they sell? And do you know what the
yeah,
price was? I'm just curious because that's kind
yeah.
of fun. Yeah.
Um, okay, so the the client in this case was a builder, Allstate Properties. They had been hired by the State Department to develop a model house for the American exhibition in Moscow in
Mm,
1959. And, that's the place where famously Richard Nixon and Nikita Khrushchev got sort of cornered into the model house and in the kitchen. And there was also a period slightly before that, just before that, where they were standing in front of an Ampex tape display and the cameras were rolling, and they
yeah.
had a little bit of an argument over you know um,
Architecture or politics?
it was politics. It was
Yeah.
politics, but
Yeah.
um, it became known as the kitchen debate, and
Ah,
because it was taped, the tapes made their way to the United States, and um, it made the news. And
mm,
the thing is, though, is that the client was all state properties, but my grandfather was the one who had adapted this model house of theirs to fit the exhibition hall. So he showed up at work um, the next day, and people were telling him, you're being looked at in Moscow. And he said, what are you talking about? And
right.
come to find out, these world leaders were stuck in his kitchen, and it made, international news.
That's interesting.
Um, so, riding on the coattails of that, Allstate Properties decided, well, let's show the Russians that we can do even better. He said, let's show them that your average American can have a second house
Oh
too,
boy. Oh
vacation
boy.
house. And so they developed this idea of Leisurama, working with Macy's department store.
Mm.
And, the idea was that you'd go into Macy's and put a down payment on your Macy's card. You could pick out your furniture, anything that you wanted, your furnishings, your plates, your silverware, even down to what color toothbrush you wanted.
Oh
And
my gosh.
and then when the house was ready, you'd go out there to Montauk, New York, where they were built, and a big truck would show up with all your stuff. And so you'd be unpacking boxes for a few days, and within a day or two, you'd have a house full of
All
stuff.
the things you chose. Yeah, no, that's amazing. Like,
And so there were about 200 of them that were actually built.
okay.
Um, they were originally planning about 1,000 of them, but they ran into a problem with drainage out there, and they weren't able to properly, you know, take care of septic systems and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. So the town required, if I remember correctly, that they had to build a water treatment plant in order to finish the whole thing, and that was going to be millions, and it just put a stop to the whole thing. But
Oh,
to this day, there's still 200 of these houses out there, and Um, when we first started working on the film, you could buy one of them for about 125, $150,000.
Uh-huh.
Now, now it's way beyond $1 million,
Right.
and sometimes people will buy the house and on a few rare occasions they've torn them down to put something else up. But for the most part, people kind of cherish these because
Yeah, for sure. And are they in different locations or just still in Montauk?
they're all in Montauk. Most
Okay.
of them in the Culloden area. There are a
Okay.
few that are spread around through other areas. I believe the police station in Montauk was formerly a model
That's
Leisurama house.
funny.
Um,
That's great. What a
yeah.
great story, and that you have connection to it through your family. That's amazing. I want to transition a little bit to Farmboy because I wanted to ask you about that too. And for those listening, it's an Emmy award-winning film about a Depression era research farm in upstate New York where techniques and equipment were developed and commonly used throughout the world today, and about the boy who grew up on the farm, and also got an Emmy Award for the musical composition, which is amazing. So tell us a little bit about that and what sparked that project.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what to do next after Leisurama.
Sometimes it's as easy as that.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't really. I had a lot of ideas. I was thinking about doing something about the American trailblazers. I'm kind of glad I didn't do that project. My mom, um, Jamie uh, Dutra, she lives up in the Ithaca, New York area, and I believe it was at her chiropractor's office where she met John Babcock, who
Mm.
wrote a book called Farmboy, and she got a copy of it and read it, and she just thought it was fantastic. And so, I get this call from her one day saying, "I'm sending you a book, and it's going to be your next film."
Oh,
And I said to her,
okay.
"Okay, right, Mom," Um, but she sent the book down, and I was doing a lot of work in Manhattan at that time, and so I had to ride the Long Island Railroad a lot, and I
Yep.
decided to bring the book with me onto the train, and I
Yep.
wrote the book on the train. And by the time I was done with it, I thought, this story is actually available to do a film about. I mean,
Right.
yeah, I'd be interested in this, sure.
Yeah.
So
No.
I met John, I met the Babcock family, and we decided to do it. They sort of interviewed me too. I think they wanted to see who was
Right.
the guy.
Well, this is their
And
life story, so I'm sure they wanna make sure they liked you at minimum. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I mean, to this day, I mean, unfortunately, John passed away many years ago, but his daughter Susan, who I worked with closely on that project, is still a good friend, and
Great.
I spoke to her this morning, as a matter of fact. So,
Awesome.
um, yeah, and so we started that project, and I think one of the things that really appealed to me about it is that I've always been into hiking and exploring the woods, going on adventures. And because this story took place up in Ithaca, and a lot of it was in the gorges up in Ithaca, with waterfalls and just this incredible, beautiful scenery, it was something that I had always wanted to find an excuse to film, to capture on film.
Mm.
And this was the perfect opportunity.
Well,
So,
there you go.
so we did that project, and in post-production, um, I asked Richie Sisenti and Cosmo Millardi to do the music for the film.
Mm.
And um, essentially how that worked is that I would find pieces of music, proxy music, things that kind of conveyed the feeling that I was looking for.
Mhm.
And I didn't give them an edit to work from to time their music to, but I basically gave them free rein to write and record whatever it is that they wanted, just in that, in that genre, that
You
feel.
gave him a prompt, yeah. You gave
Yeah,
him a
yeah,
prompt of, what it was about, I assume? Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
And they would come back to me with first a demo, and then they'd start working on the recording, and they'd share it with me throughout the whole process, and I'd give them my feedback, but I was never disappointed. It was always exactly what I wanted, you know.
Well, that's a great lesson for everyone listening to us, like, sometimes you should let people do what they do.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, those two guys, they're
Yeah,
so in tune with each other, and they're just so incredibly talented. And
yeah.
you know, I had the privilege of writing um, the closing song, the song that runs during the closing credits, um, that has lyrics. So I wrote the lyrics for that, and we worked on that together. And quite frankly, I think it was the lyrics to that song that earned me the award from that film.
That's funny.
Um, but
Yeah.
I mean, I credit them with making that all happen. That Emmy wouldn't have happened without them. They're
Yeah,
the ones that earned it. So
that's
I was
amazing.
just a guy who orchestrated, you know.
So how did they pick it up for those filmmakers in the audience that are trying to make a living for themselves? Like, how did they pick it up to be considered for an Emmy? Did they see it in an independent film festival or what happened?
Um, no, actually, it's funny. I had a friend who was into PR, who basically said to me, it's really not hard to get an Emmy or, any kind of award. I said, you got to be kidding me. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Said, no, he said, you need to actually apply. And then he explains the process, and so I thought, okay, well, let me nominate the film, and I'll nominate these guys in the project, and we'll see how this goes. And you
right,
submitted samples of the work, and then I just kind of forgot about it for some time.
right,
And then I got an email saying that the results had come in, that they were being announced, and I was given a link to go visit, and so I went in there, and I'm scrolling through all the awards and everything, and it wasn't until we were like down at the bottom of the list, and I was already thinking, yeah, we didn't get anything.
right, right.
I'm a failure. But,
Yes. We're all imposters.
yeah,
That's what I'm learning from
exactly.
talking to
Just a
everyone.
just a poser, yeah. Um,
Yep.
and there at the bottom of the list is Farmboy, um, for musical score.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
I immediately called Richie, and I'm like, "You're not going to believe this."
He probably said, "I
Just-
told you."
You've been nominated for an Emmy.
Yeah, yeah,
And so we went to the awards, and that was amazing. We
yeah.
totally didn't expect to win, but it was great.
Well,
Yeah.
it also helps with, helping others to, if they're making a decision, to who they're gonna use, it helps to beef up your
Yeah.
resume, so to speak.
Don't ever feel pressured to use somebody that you're not happy with,
Yep.
that I mean, I hate to put it that way. That sounds terrible, but you need to be able to gel with the person that you're working with,
Yeah, for
because it
sure.
is a partnership.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've been on talking about your custom projects where you have people hire you to do their projects, same with my custom art. It's a collaboration and it's sometimes very difficult.
Yeah.
And you have to work through it and that's why it really rang true with me when you said, to just let them give them a prompt, but let them do what they want, because it's easier to be less restricted and more creative that way. Because when you put parameters on projects, then it's, it narrows you down, and then maybe you had a great idea over here and you couldn't execute it because of that parameter. So it's yeah, it can be tricky. And I go through a process of give them an initial like mock-up, and then I do another one that like halfway through, just to make sure I'm on the right track, and then I start on the original, and then I make sure they're good with the original. So I have a whole process that I go through to make sure they're good with it. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's tricky. Um,
You have to be comfortable with the person to begin with, but another thing that I found really is it's important is um not you can't be overbearing with the person, and say, "Oh, this is what I want and this is what it has to be."
yeah,
You've got to find the talents that the person has and elevate those,
that's right.
Give everybody a chance to really do what
Shine.
they
Yeah.
love,
Yeah.
shine, because
Yeah.
that's when the really good work comes out.
It is. It absolutely is. Yep. And
I
it's
work with,
even better if you have a collaborative group and they're all,
yeah,
it's hard to find that synergy.
yeah,
Sometimes there's a lot of ego, or, they just want it the way they want it. It's kind of dictatorship. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's really, there's lots of ways you can manage that, but
hmm
yeah, I'm sure you have some. I'd like to hear about your creative process from concept to cut, final cut. Like,
mm,
you don't have to go through every detail, because I know there's a lot, but I'm just curious, like, do you storyboard? I know I do that sometimes with video. Do you, have, is it collaborative with your team? How does that work with the edits? And maybe pick one, whether it's just you guys versus working with a client. Yeah. So I'd just
yeah.
like to hear about that.
Well, with all our projects, I will start out with a rough outline of what I want it to be. And by rough, I mean I've got a sheet of paper that has, you know, the main topics.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take on the topic. I mean, I have to research it. You have to know what you're talking about,
Yep.
obviously. But you go in with this rough outline and just recognize the fact that the story is going to change and evolve as you're going through the production process.
Mm,
You know, I love selecting interviewees, um, because of course to have um, you want to have accuracy, you want true history. I don't want to put people into the films that are going to be spewing some kind of agenda or something.
right.
I mean, that's not what this is
Or
about.
maybe they didn't remember quite correctly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's part of the process. But I will go in and try to make the interview a conversation. I mean, I'm
Mm,
literally in within inches of the camera, trying to be at the eye level with the lens, so they're looking at me, but it feels like they're kind of looking not quite at the audience, but and I'll
right.
I'll have somebody on this side looking that way and this side looking that way. So when you
Right.
cut them all together, it becomes a conversation between interviewees. I don't use narrators. And
Interesting.
for that reason, I don't storyboard anything. Um, the the narrative really comes from weaving the interviews into a conversation.
Gotcha.
And
Are there happy accidents that happen in that?
oh yeah. Well,
Yeah, okay.
when people it's a conversation, so people will get emotional, or they'll laugh, or they'll cry, and
Right. Or they'll go left down another lane. You were like, wait. Yeah.
yeah, sometimes that happens, and it's a
Yeah.
good thing. It's
Yeah.
like,
No, I agree.
thought of that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But I love those moments where people maybe get a little vulnerable, and their emotion comes out in what they're talking about, because that they're projecting something that you can't manufacture.
Yes.
And that when you see them up on the screen emoting like that, it's going to make everybody in that theater cry.
Feel that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Feel that. Yeah, for
And
sure. For sure.
I think it sounds terrible saying, "Oh, I love making people cry," but if
Well,
you
you
do
like
that,
touching them. Yeah,
yeah, you're
you're
reaching
getting
their heart.
emotion out of somebody. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's similar to when I approach my artwork because I have an idea of where I'm going and what I wanna do and what maybe colors I'm using or, things like that, like perspective and, uh, you know, color theory and dimension and where I'm going in general, but you have to be loose enough, and I like talking about this, to be able to let the magic happen because it's really in my mind technique and flow, and they come together to make that magic happen. So if you have all the technique in the world but you're not allowing things to happen, then you're missing the point of being creative, I think.
Right.
'Cause, the whole point of me sitting down to create is I'm searching for those magic moments, and I don't know where or how they're gonna come, even though I've decided to start somehow, and now I have to pay attention and be present in order to say, "Oh, okay,
Right.
we're gonna go this way," and be okay with it because then it's not what I originally thought. So,
I was going
yeah.
to ask, have you ever really surprised yourself? And
Yes, I have, because I use, in some of my abstracts and what I do, and I just love it. It's just what jazzes me because I have a what I call my box of toys, and it's all kinds of, um it's like dog toys and computer equipment and,
yeah,
kitchen utensils, and I just roll them on the canvas so they make marks that are you know,
it's cool.
unplannable. Like, you can't plan those marks. Like, you're trying to get something unexpected on there to grab onto and then go with that? So, yeah, I'm working on a new style now because I don't have enough energy coming in on my pieces. So I want to project more energy onto them. So I'm trying to get out of my own way because it's very hard to be technical and want to do something that you're proud of and that you love, but then also leave room for things to happen that you didn't anticipate, and you don't know when I go down that path, I don't know if it's going to turn out okay or not, but I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Let's go this way, and
You know,
it's
it,
go ahead.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, I'm done.
Well, it reminds me of there was a really good friend of mine named Tony Ricci, abstract artist who lived
Ooh.
out in Bridgehampton, out on Long Island. And he said something to me once that I must have been a teenager at the time, and he was much older, but he's a neighbor of my uncle's out there at the time, and he said to me, the way I approach my work is I will start off by deliberately causing a problem on the canvas. I purposely make something that I absolutely hate. And he says, then I will hang it on the wall, and I might take a couple of years staring at it, trying to figure out why I hate it so much. and then eventually I'll figure out what I have to do to fix it. And he says, by the time I've gotten it fixed, then I know that it's ready. Then I know it's finished.
That's right. I
Um,
have them in my living room, the problem children, and I just have them so I can stare at them just like that. And
yeah.
sometimes I turn them upside down because
Oh,
sometimes I get so distorted about what I'm trying to do, and I've tried it so many times, and I'm like, "Why can't I get this to work? Like, what the
yeah.
heck?"
Oh,
And I turn it upside down and let it sit there for a while, and just being around and, um, being on the phone or watching TV or talking to somebody and just passing by and looking at it, sometimes I'm like, "Oh, shit, I should have done this. I didn't even think," it just comes, and
hmm,
then I'm able to fix it and I'm happy. Sometimes, though, I'm not. I
right.
want I wanna take the painting outside and just beat it to death on the
Oh,
grass.
doing it. Yeah.
But yeah, you have to play around with that. That's exactly what I do. My mentor taught me that actually. If you're too much in your head about something, turn it upside down and
You
yeah.
know, I got to tell you something in that vein. Oh my goodness, I think it was 2015 or 16, somewhere around there. Um, Tracy, my wife Tracy and
Mhm.
I, we executive produced a film for director Matthew Silva called Modern Ruin. It was about the New York State Pavilion at the 1964 World's Fair. It was a building designed by Philip Johnson
Yep.
and still stands. It is now, being restored, and it's an incredible building, and it was amazing back in its day. And Matthew is a really good storyteller, and he did his first rough cut, and he gave it to us to watch and to critique. And we both watched it kind of separately, and watched it a couple of times, and then came back to each other and had this conversation about it.
Yeah.
And Tracy and I both agreed this is really, really good, but we had the exact same thought. The first half of the film um, should be actually the second half of the film. If he
Mm.
takes the second half and moves it to the beginning and does it like this.
Right.
And so we had a meeting with Matthew about it, and he, I'm sure was pretty nervous about it, wanting to know what we thought, what changes needed to be made or whatever. And we told him we love it. We think this is great, but we do have one suggestion. And, take it from this point on, which is about the middle of the film,
Mhm.
move that to the beginning, and, and
Yeah.
see the look on his face. It was like trying to process what we were seeing,
He just cut his baby in half.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he came back to us a couple days later. He says, I tried what you did, and you were absolutely right,
Oh, good. That's
And
exciting.
and we we watched it again the second time and thought, you know what? Now it's perfect. Now I mean, it was really good before, but now it really works very, very well. So was very much in the same vein, as
Yeah.
turning it upside down. We kind
Right.
he turned it upside down,
Right.
and it was a really good film. It moved a lot of people, and I
Yeah.
think it played a big role in having the city of New York
Yep.
decides to actually invest in restoring the building and
Yeah. Is that
money.
the one with the glass on the roof? Am I thinking of the right one? It has
Well,
a glass section, for the roof part?
it's kind of like it's how do you describe this building? It's a big round pavilion.
Mhm.
Originally, it had multicolored glass,
That's what I thought. Yeah.
and that eventually, as it decayed over the years, because it was neglected for a long,
Right.
that all fell down and just crashed to the ground. And
I'm sure.
um, but it also has those two towers that have like the saucers on it.
Hmm.
In fact, it was in the movie Men in Black.
Black, yeah. Where
Yeah,
the alien was trying to take off on it.
yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the building, and it was falling apart, but for me, it was always interesting driving by, looking at this building, thinking,
Yeah.
that is so interesting. What could it be in
Right.
the future? And um, it looks really good now.
Oh, good. What's your take on the current state of the film industry? Any ideas there? I
That's a
know
big
that's a loaded question. Yeah, yeah.
that
You
is
can take that any way you want. We don't have to get, real deep with that, but
well,
I'm just curious.
I can speak from the documentary standpoint. Um, I mean, one thing that's very important to me is accuracy and making sure that history is documented properly.
Mm,
I mean, occasionally, once in a blue moon, an error will creep into a film,
mhm.
and I hate that. I
Right.
mean, we do all of our fact checking, we do everything we possibly can, and sometimes something will creep in that isn't quite correct, and at the first opportunity I have, I will correct it. Um,
Mm,
I mean, William Kreisel, architect, there was a, it was an error, and it was just a single word that Bill Kreisel used in his interview that conveyed the wrong idea. Uh,
mm.
it made his comment historically inaccurate, and somehow I didn't catch it. But a number of years later, we were asked to remaster the film for high definition because originally
Mhm,
it was released in standard definition.
mhm.
This goes to show how old it is.
Yeah.
But that was my opportunity to fix the problem.
Mm.
I literally cut about a half of a second out of the film, but it corrected the mistake.
Yeah, that's good.
So, that's how important it is to me. What concerns me now is that um, people are starting to go more in the direction of entertainment when it comes
Mm.
to
Then
document
historical accuracy. Yeah, yeah.
historical accuracy, and people are I'm being very careful about the way I word this.
I understand. Yeah.
They're they're incorporating um, ideologies into the history, sometimes rewriting the history a little bit,
I
you know.
agree.
And that is not something that I want to participate in. You know,
Yeah. I side note, I'm seen and heard about the textbooks in some of the schools that
yeah,
aren't reporting history correctly, and that's
yeah,
you would hope that we would get our own history correct, but there's a lot behind that, so I
right.
understand what you're saying. Yeah.
There's a danger in it because, first of all, lying isn't good. Second of all,
Yeah.
um, history has unfolded the way it has because people are constantly learning from their mistakes. But, if you
Change
change
it.
the history,
Mhm.
who's learned anything from it? The
That's
mistakes
right.
are going to happen all over again. So,
Yeah.
that is a big concern. If a documentary filmmaker is going for sensationalism,
Mm.
um, they're relying on the entertainment value of a story. And
Where is the line there? That's interesting. Like, I mean, if you
yeah,
state
well,
in the beginning that it is fiction and, loosely based on history, I mean, do you have a
what's the point?
opinion
Because
on
then
that?
it ceases becoming it ceases being a documentary at that point, you
Oh
know.
yeah, no, not a documentary. I meant for
Yeah,
entertainment. Yeah.
right, right. So, um, people have to be cautious, have to be careful, about what they're accepting as being truth.
Mm,
Um, if the documentary seems sensational, it probably is sensational, you know. Have you ever heard of the people that are being interviewed? Well, maybe not, but if you look them up, if you research who they um, are they credible?
right,
I mean, or is this a manufactured story?
right,
Is it something that maybe we should think twice about or
right.
research before accepting it as the truth? And unfortunately, people will pick up uh, some of these distorted histories and just run
Mm,
with them, and then the next thing you know, it gets repeated over and over again. And I mean, there have been incidents where made up stories end up being on the national news and,
right,
and covered by the major networks and stuff. And then it comes out that it's false.
right, right.
So I don't like that trend.
Yeah,
Um, but
yeah.
unfortunately, that's where we are, and it is going to result.
News is quote unquote entertainment now, and I feel like it's the shock jock era, as a radio term anyway, for reporting. And I think, most of them anyway, there's some doing the right thing out there, but yeah, for the most part, they're trying to get your attention because of all the noise. So much information coming at us. They want to hook you with the interesting story, and they one up themselves every time. It's like every time it's more, dramatic and not the truth, to your point. So
Yeah.
yeah, so what advice would you give an inspire this is my last question. What advice would you give an inspiring filmmaker that's trying to break into the industry?
Well, my advice is don't get in your own way.
Mm,
Be humble, be willing to learn new things, be willing to accept the fact that you're going to be wrong sometimes, and it's okay to say I was wrong,
yep.
and I will fix this. Um, I mean,
That's a really good point. Like you can't explore if you're not willing to make mistakes. Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
We are, as filmmakers, we're not the be all and end all of it. We're
Right.
imperfect people and we make mistakes. And if we don't own up to it, we've lost our credibility
Yep.
and we get a reputation, and that's not good. So we've got to be humble. And the other thing that I would say is don't inject um, a personal ideology into what you're documenting.
That's right. Be
Um,
true to the piece. Yes.
yeah, I mean, be neutral, because that way you can you can address and document the facts without being pressured. That
Mm.
way you don't isolate or alienate yourselves from half of your potential audience.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, if a person starts spouting off political ideology in their documentary, you've got half of the population that's going to say, "Oh, they're terrible."
Right.
And what kind of a reputation is that as
Right.
a journalist, as a documentarian? That's you make yourself um, um, not trustable. No
Yeah.
one will trust you.
Untrustworthy. Yeah. No,
Trustworthy
those are very good.
words.
Happens. I can't speak sometimes either. It's all good. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And we'll put Jake's information, website, film, and some of the links to the films and maybe the music and some other things. So we'll add that all to the description. My last question, any new projects you want to announce?
Oh, sure. we've been working on a short film called Curating Modernism. It's basically about um, modern architecture from the 20th century, how to preserve it,
Mm.
and different ways to preserve it, because not every avenue works for everybody's situation, and there's a lot of factors to consider. So we just finished production on it on Tuesday, and so
Mhm.
now got months and months of editing.
Well, I have a contact for you because I interviewed someone here locally, and I'll get you his information. He's the CEO of US Modernists. I don't know if you know who he is,
I know
George.
George.
Okay. I just wanted to make
George
sure.
is the executive producer of this film.
Oh, great. Well, there you have it. I thought I was making a good connection, and you're already there, so that's good. Yeah, as soon as you said that, I was like, "I need to connect him with George." Oh, that's great. He's an amazing guy. So thank you so
The
much
hard
for your
worker.
time today. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, me too.
If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Feel free to nominate yourself or someone you know as our next guest. Thank you for being a part of our creative community. Stay inspired and keep shining bright.